Nitya Gadadhara Srivasati Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Radha Syama Sundara Radha Syama Sundara Radhe Jaya Radha Govinda Radhe Jaya Radha Gopinath Radhe Jaya Jagannatha Jaya Baladeva Jaya Subhadra Jaya Krishna Balaram Jaya Vrindavana Dham Jaya Gaura Nityai Jaya Gaura Nityai Jaya Gaura Nityai Jaya Gaura Nityai Jaya Nrsingadev Jaya Nrsingadev Nrsingadev Jaya Nrsingadev Jaya Panchatattva Jaya Panchatattva Jaya Panchatattva Jaya Panchatattva Jaya Jaya Prabhupada
Kanda hai na?
Srila Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Gurudev Jaya Jaya Gurudev Harinam Sankirtan ki jai. Thank you Mataji.
Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you Anasuya Mataji. Hari Bol, Hare Krishna to everyone. So someone is okay, yeah, it's fine. Yeah. So we welcome His Grace Prasanatma Balram Prabhu, today's speaker. I just want to say a few words about Prabhu, which I've observed in last few days. Prabhu is always busy in sevas and always engaged in taking care of the new devotees, the new people who have joined the temple or who started coming to the temple. And still when it comes to preaching, Prabhu never says no, even though he's so busy, even though his schedule is so busy. This Monday also Prabhu was a little busy. So instead of saying no to the seva, he said that I will take the class on Wednesday. And that's how Prabhu is taking class today. So thank you so much, Prabhu. We are learning a lot from you. And over to you, Prabhu. Hari Bol, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. I think you are very merciful. Thank you so much. So there is nothing like that. Generally, devotees exaggerate, especially when they have to talk about other devotees. So we'll have to take it with a pinch of salt. Okay. So Hare Krishna, I hope my audio, video, everything is all right. So we'll get started.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Dandavad pranams. Yes, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna to all the devotees here. Dandavad pranams to all of you. So we can get started. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narotmam Devim Saraswatam Vyasam Tato Jaya Mudirayet Nashta Prayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Girim Yat Kripatam Aham Vande Shri Guru Dinatarinam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram. Hare Krishna. So we'll today we are looking at certain verses in the Shrimad Bhagavatam. I think this is from the third canto, chapter 6. So we'll be looking at verses from 5 to 8. That is 5, 6, 7, and 8. So we got 4 shlokas and 4 translations. So I'll just try to share 1 minute. I hope you can see the screen now. So devotees, if we can do, we'll do 2 shlokas now and then the other 2. But yeah, before that, I'll just try to read the shloka. 3, 6, and 5. Parena vishatha swasmin mataya vishvasrigjanaha tukshobhanyonyam asadhya yasmin lokas characharaha.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Yeah,
Parena vishatam swarismanna matraya vishwasragnaha chukshobhanyonya mahasadhya yasmin lokakshara. Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Thank you, Mataji. And now for the, just a second.
Hare Krishna, Dandavad Pranam Prabhuji.
Yes,
Shri
Mataji.
Prabhupada ki jai. Can I read the translation?
Yeah, please go ahead.
As the Lord in this plenary portion entered into the elements of the universal creation, they transformed into the gigantic form in which all the planetary systems and all movable and immovable creation rests. Should I read the purport?
No, Mataji, we don't have the
Hari
time for the purports. So,
Hare Krishna,
but-
Dandavad Pranam Prabhuji, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai, thank you so much. Wonderful. And then the next shloka also we will see. The 6th
Hare
verse. Yeah, go
Hare
ahead, Mataji.
Krishna Prabhu. Dhanavad.
Then we'll-
हिरण्मयः स पुरुषः सहस्रपरिवत्सरान् अण्डकोश उवासु सर्वसत्त्वोपबृंहितः. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Mataji. And then the translation, who would like to read?
Shall I, Prabhuji?
Yeah, please go ahead, Mataji.
Translation by His Divine Grace S. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. The gigantic Virat Purusha, known as Hiranmaya, lived for 1000 celestial years on the water of the universe, and all the living entities lay with him. Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavad Pranam.
Hare Krishna. So thank you so much. So the other 2 shlokas we will see as we move forward. Okay. Now the Mangalacharan. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kada Mahyam Dadati Swaptantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapada Kamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devan Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitam Scha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishavano Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nitinamine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschayata Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna. So this particular, we've just started the 6th chapter. So this particular chapter is called as the creation of the universal form. So actually, when we talk about the creation, so it kind of becomes a little boring. I mean, boring as in it's not so appealing as compared to the various pastimes of the Lord, Krishna Katha, or the avatars doing their various leelas and all that. So this becomes a little difficult, dry subject. It becomes a little difficult to understand also, because sometimes we hear so many things from so many places, and then we wonder, how can all this be true? The entities are living inside the body of Vishnu. So which Vishnu are the entities lying inside? Is it Mahavishnu, or is it Garbhodakasai Vishnu? And then how is it that the Lord is present as Paramatma? How is it that the Lord is omniscient, omnipotent, and omnipresent? So now these are the three words. I mean, even in other religion also, when we are talking about the Lord, the Supreme Person, they always say that the Lord is omnipotent. He is very powerful. Omniscient, he knows everything. And he is omnipresent. He is present everywhere. Now, but then other texts or the literatures that are available does not deal in detail about how he is omnipotent or omniscient or omnipresent, and how great is Lord. See, everybody accepts the fact that the Lord is great, but then how great is Lord is something that is not discussed. He is great, that's it. But then if you look at our text about Sanatana Dharma, if you look at the Vedas, then there is so much of details that are given in the greatness of the Lord, in how he is great, what are his qualities, what does his Prabhupada says, you have all details of the Lord, you have the biodata of the Lord, he says that you even have the address where the Lord stays. So in this way, there is a lot of details that are there. Now, we are looking at, this is a conversation between Maitreya Rishi and Vidura that has started actually in this particular, from this chapter onwards. In fact, you'll see that this particular conversation goes on for many, many chapters. Many, many things are discussed here, which is part of the Shrimad Bhagavatam, which is actually a conversation between Maitreya Rishi and Vidura. So now, at the start of the conversation, like they say, first things first, Maitreya Rishi starts off by talking about creation, about the material world. And that is why this chapter, the title is called as Creation of the Universal Form, or the Virata Purusha, or Virat Rupa. So now, here in these verses, we are seeing that the manifestation of this Virata Purusha, or the Virat Rupa, is actually happening with the ingredients which are known as Mahatattva. So now Mahatattva is like the raw material or the ingredient that is there. There's 23 of them, some very gross, some very subtle, up to mind, ego, and all that. And then there is also this subtle things like the material nature, that is Sattvagun, Rajogun, Tamogun. All of this, right from earth, that is soil, the earth, to the subtle things like the gunas, everything is part of this Mahatattva. And then subsequent action or movement, etc. happens. So all this is lying in the Mahatattva. Now the Mahatattva can actually come alive, so to speak, only when a spirit enters. We have heard elsewhere how the Lord as Vishnu just glanced upon the Mahatattva, and then everything got into motion. So now, what happens in that everything getting into motion is a detail that we will see here now. So some of it we are not able to comprehend completely at this point, and never mind. The whole point is that the root cause, or the primary cause for all this, is the Lord. As long as we have that understanding clear, then I think we have done a good job, then, so to speak. So now this Mahatattva remains like that, and then the subsequent actions that we see, which is the creation of the universe, happens only when spirit enters. Which is the spirit that we are talking about here? We are talking about the Lord himself, or the expansion of the Lord, or the expansion of the Lord. So here it is said that the Supreme Lord, as Garbhodakasai Vishnu, he is entering into this Mahatattva, or a portion of the Mahatattva, and then the form, the creation happens. And in the creation, when it is happening, he is actually manifesting in the creation as the Virata Purusha or Virat Rupa. So actually, plenary, what do we mean by plenary expansion? That means an expansion which is not separate from the Lord. We are separated expansions of the Lord. We, as in jivas or souls, are not plenary expansions of the Lord, though we are expansions of the Lord, but we come under a different category known as separated, bhinna expansion of the Lord. That means after the expansion, then we are separated. We are still not connected in the way a plenary expansion is connected. So all the Vishnu Tattvas are the plenary expansions of the Lord. Though both these expansions, that is the jivas as well as the Vishnu Tattvas, both of them are the internal expansion of the Lord, but still there's a small difference. And that difference, that is why we always say the plenary expansion. When we say plenary expansion or the expansion of the plenary expansion of the Lord, then we are talking about Vishnu Tattvas. So now that category, I think all of us are aware. Now, a portion, one particular expansion of this plenary expansion is called as Garbhodaka Sai Vishnu. Now, he enters and the universe is created. Now, what do we mean by the universe is created? That means the Mahatattva ingredients are used, and then the sun, the moon, the planets. Now, how are the planets positioned? As per the Bhagavatam, we know there is this upper planetary system, lower planetary system, then the middle planetary, which is the Bhuloka, where we are residing. All of this get created. Now, this is actually the Virata Purusha. If you look at the description of Virata Purusha, what does it say? It says that the eyes of the Virata Purusha are the sun and the moon, and then the lower limb is the lower planetary systems are the limbs of the Lord. The higher planetary system is the upper body, like the head, and so on and so forth. So you can see, if you read the Purusha Sukta, and then if you look at the meanings there, then we will understand how the universe is compared to a Purusha, and that comparison is done in this way. So now when we say that creation happened, the planetary systems came into being, the sun and moon came into being, it is also correct to say that the Virata Purusha got created, because Virata Purusha is comprising of all these planetary things, which are actually material, So the sun are his eyes, like I said, the moon are his, sun and the moon are his eyes, and so on and so forth. Now, so all this gets formed from the Mahatattva, and then it is in a dormant stage for 1000 celestial years. Now, what is this particular thing? It says that after the Earth and then all these planets got created, there was still no living entities that were involved in activities. There were living entities, but then they were not involved in any activity. That is why it is called as they were in the dormant stage for 1000 celestial years. Then Brahma comes and then he does the secondary creation. So this is what this our Shrimad Bhagavatam is talking, or trying to give details about what is happening in that agitation, what is the time frame it takes, and then how what is getting created first, and then what happens, and then the next step, and so on and so forth. So this is the beginning of that particular discussion that we will have. Okay. So now the living entities that are all present within the Garbhodaka Sai Vishnu, along with this, along with the expansion of the Lord, they are all in dormant stage. They are all in the sleep stage. So till Brahma, is being born, nothing happens. So now that is the arrangement that the Lord has got. And now from Brahma, then all the living creatures as well as the demigods are all born later on, because Brahma then creates those things. And that is why the first human being that Brahma created is Manu. That is why there is this aspect of Manushya, or Manu is the first human being. So now there are very many varieties of human beings that are being created by Lord Brahma. The dormant souls end up entering these bodies which are suitable for them. So now you have all these jivas which are dormant, and then Brahma is creating using the Mahatattva, the gross things. And then now there is a match the following that happens, in the sense like which type of jiva will go to which body. So that is decided by whom? It is decided by Brahma, but then it is not random. It is not without any reason. The logic is that based on what jiva, that particular jiva deserves. It is like the jiva is in dormant stage, it is woken up, and then it has to occupy a certain body. So now that type of body is determined by the desire of that particular jiva, and also what it deserves. So there are two things, right, that guide what type of body a jiva gets. So what based on what they deserve and then what they desire. So depending on that, a suitable body is given. Now we might have a question. The jivas were all in dormant stage. How is it that it had some desire? So this desire, or whatever they deserve, is the sum total of what they did in the previous kalpa. So now every kalpa, there is this creation that happens. There is this whole cycle that happens, right? Every creation. So now there are each time when pralaya happens, there are many types of pralayas. So when a pralaya happens, then the living entities go into the body of that particular Vishnu. In the day of Brahma and then the night of Brahma, when after the annihilation in the day of Brahma, then the night of Brahma comes in. So at the night of Brahma, then all the living entities that were present at that point on this material world, which have not been liberated, they will go into a dormant stage. They will go into Garbhodaka Sai Vishnu's body. Now, this is for one day of Brahma. Now we know that Brahma lives for 100 years this way. And now after the 100th year, then the entire destruction of Brahmanda happens. At that point, then all the living entities that were present at that point go into the body of Mahavishnu. So both are correct in one sense. Like Mahavishnu, also the living entities go in and then they wait out for the next creation to happen. And then that is in the cycle, in the life cycle of Brahma, that is. And then in the day of Brahma also, there is this annihilation that happens where the the entities go into Garbhodaka Sai Vishnu. So that the earlier Mahavishnu is called as Karanodaka Sai Vishnu. So now we know we have three types of Vishnus: Karanodaka Sai Vishnu, Garbhodaka Sai Vishnu, and Shirodaka Sai Vishnu. So now I'll not talk about Shirodaka Sai right now, but then we can understand depending on the type of annihilation and then the stage at which we are looking at this particular thing, we will understand. So every day there is creation that Brahma does, which we know. But then the infrastructure is not demolished. That means the Brahmanda, that remains. The planetary systems, everything remains. It is just that the souls go in and then they come out again after Brahma takes his rest. Then again, he does match the following. He puts the jivas into the various bodies, and then life continues for them. Then the life continues for a jiva in terms of their desire, trying to fulfill it. Then they make some aparad or then bad things, and accordingly they get elevated or they go down, and so on and so forth. So all this is governed by the laws of karma, and then life goes on like that. So we continue. We've been doing this for millions and millions and millions of years, lifetime after lifetime, kalpas after kalpas, and then finally the whole aspect is of liberation, which means that trying to break the cycle of life and death, which is a discussion that we will not enter into right now. But then that's something that we all know. So now we saw how suitable body they get, and then we also saw how everything is a cycle. So we can say that the energy of Mahatattva is the Virat Purusha. This form divided himself by himself into consciousness of living entities. Now, another interesting thing that happens after the souls go in there, still the Lord has to again do something. What does he do? He divided himself. That is Garbhodaka Sai Vishnu. He divided himself, and then he enters all of these bodies as consciousness. So now, so that is why the form which divided himself by himself into consciousness of living entities. So now all the consciousness that is there in the living entities is very similar to the consciousness of the Lord. So the Lord is also aware of himself, like how we are aware of ourselves, our body. So the Lord, that is Virata Purusha, is aware of himself and his own body, which is the entire creation. Now that is how the Lord is conscious of the entire creation, or there is consciousness. Even whatever is happening in one place, then he will know what is happening. Like if you take our body, we are conscious of this body. Prabhupada gives this example. The soul has its consciousness, which is limited to this body. In the same way, the Lord has consciousness, which is unlimited. Why it is unlimited? Because the Virata Purusha is unlimited, and that Purusha's consciousness is spreading over the entire creation, which is the Brahmanda, the entire Brahmanda. So like this, we can draw a parallel and then try to grasp this aspect of consciousness, which is there in the Lord, and then which is there with us. And that is why in the next shloka it is explained as this consciousness is one. It is not that there are many consciousness. So the aspect of consciousness is one only, and that is coming from the Lord. And then that is from the dormant nature, they all become conscious of themselves, like sleep to wakefulness. When somebody comes and wakes us up, then we are awake, and then we become conscious. So like that. But here in that stage, the Lord is entering to give them that consciousness. And once he has entered and then the consciousness is there, then of course we have this intermittent sleep and wakefulness and all that, loss of memory, all of that, but still the consciousness is never taken away. Even for a person who has lost his memory, the consciousness is not taken away of me, myself, and then those basic things are not. He doesn't forget to breathe, and there are certain activities that he doesn't forget, even though he has lost memory of other things. So like this, we can understand a little bit about the consciousness. And here in the shloka, it is described as consciousness being one. So this oneness is being highlighted here, oneness of consciousness. The Lord's consciousness is prevalent everywhere, but the soul is fallen, contaminated. So it is not having it everywhere. So it is not aligned to Krishna consciousness. Now, then what happens is another quality of the living entity is that it can fall. It is not achyuta, it is chuta. That means that it can undergo conditioning. Whereas a Vishnu Tattva or a plenary expansion of the Lord cannot happen, because it is above the conditioning forces, that is the Maya Shakti. It is above that. Whereas the Jiva Tattvas, they are separated, they are binna, they are separated energies of the Lord. So they are so minute in nature that they can get contaminated. And now that contamination has already happened. That is because we are not, what is the end result of that contamination? How do we know? We know it by the symptom. What is that symptom? The symptom is that we are not Krishna conscious, or we are not God conscious. We have not aligned our consciousness to that of the Supreme Lord. So here we saw the consciousness was the same, and then it moved to everyone. But then after it came to us, we kind of contaminated it, and then we made it different. So now our alignment or our consciousness is a little different. It has become bodily conscious, or it has become material consciousness than compared to how it was in its original stage. If it was in its original stage, like the consciousness of Krishna when it came, then there would have been no problem. But then this quality of the soul is such that it can get contaminated. So we have this particular issue, or the whole problem starts from there. And then now our aspect or our thing is to relink or realign ourselves back to the consciousness, which is the pure one, which the Lord actually divided himself into, and then came into our bodies, or he came into our souls, not even our bodies, our souls. So like this, we will have to now realign the consciousness, and that is what is Krishna consciousness all about. We are contaminated, but yet we are trying to purify the consciousness by devotional service, by chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, that is Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So you see, this is what is being told in all the texts, like in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is saying the same thing. Align to me, he says. What does he say? Sarva dharman parityaja mamekam sharanam vraja. So give up all other things and then surrender unto me. So that means align your consciousness to me. So the individual consciousness, that is Arjuna, is advised to dovetail his consciousness with the supreme consciousness, which is Krishna, and thus maintain his purity of consciousness. So this was a little bit on the oneness that is there, and then how that oneness becomes diluted when it is within us, and because of which it looks like it is many pronged, but then it is not. So once we remove those contamination, then it gets aligned. And then if you look at the further verses, so I'll just try to, we'll try to read that, because I just want to give a break in the explanation. So because it might be a little, Hare Krishna, just a minute, I'll try to share. Yes, you can see now the screen. I'll just try to go to the verse. So we'll do verse 7 and 8 now. And then, all these verses are linked one to another. So sum total of all the verses, I'll try to cover as we move. So verse number 7, anybody wants to read?
Hare
Please.
Krishna Prabhu. May I read Prabhu? May I read Prabhu?
Prabhuji.
Yes.
I'm hearing.
Savai Vishvashrucham Garbho Devakarmatma Shaktiman Vibhabhachatmanatmana Meghatha Dashatha
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Translation by Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. The total energy of the Mahat Tattva in the form of the gigantic Virata Rupa divided himself by himself into the consciousness of the living entities, the life of activity and self-identification, which are subdivided into 1, 10 and 3 respectively. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. So that was the confusing verse that we were trying to look at. So I covered a little bit of that. And then we'll move on to the next. The 8th verse. Yes. Yeah, please go ahead, Mataji.
Esha hi asesha sattvanam atmamsha paramatmanah adyo vataro yatra so bhutagramo vibhavyate. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Danvat pranam.
Danvat pranam. Thank you so much. And then the translation, please.
I'll read, Prabhuji.
Yeah, please go ahead.
All glories to Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. The gigantic universal form of the Supreme Lord is the first incarnation and plenary portion of the Supersoul. He is the self of an unlimited number of living entities, and in him is the aggregate creation which thus flourishes. Thank you, Prabhuji. Dandat Pranam.
Thank you so much. So he is the self of an unlimited number of living entities. That is what we said, the consciousness. And in him rests the aggregate creation, which thus flourishes. Now, we'll go to the previous verse. Just try to take the cue from what is said there. So here you can see that he divided himself by himself into the consciousness of the living entity. So we saw this. So that is why that was one thing that happened. And then the next one is he divided himself into the life of activity, and he divided himself into self-identification. Now, what are all these three? We'll try to understand. These are not very confusing. We'll try to keep it simple because there is more of it coming in this earlier verses also, in subsequent verses also. So we'll not go too much into detail. So now we saw to some extent how this consciousness is there in us and also in the Lord, because the Lord divided himself and then he got into everyone as consciousness. And this is the one that we are talking about here, subdivided into 1. And then he also divided into 10 when it is the life of activity. What is that? We will try to see. And then he divided into 3 with respect to self-identification. These are the 3 aspects that we will try to understand. So, okay, let me stop sharing 1 minute. Okay, now the life of activity means, see, as per the scriptures, the various activities that the living entity does is because of the various types of air that is there within the body. Now, these types of airs are classified as 10. Okay, this is briefly explained in this particular verse, but then there is more detail that comes later on. So, all activities of the embodied soul is done by various types of air. It is like the movement of the air is allowing us to do certain activities. And there are 10 of them in numbers. And that is why it says the activities he divided himself into by the air. So by controlling that air, one can control the activity. This is the link that is there. That we know. That is why this pranayama is so important, because it brings about certain amount of calmness, and there is some amount of change that is there. This is just an example for us to understand what we mean when we say the air within us, and then the control of the air brings about a certain activity in us, or a certain amount type of ability to do a certain function, and so on and so forth. This is not now very hard to understand by the example of pranayama. But now there are 5 types of air. What are these 5 types of air which are known generally are prana, apana, udana, vyana, and samana. These are the 5 airs which are responsible for 5 different things. Then there are also other types of air which are called as naga, kurma, kara, devadatta, and dhananjaya. Now, these are the 10 names that are there. Each air controls one movement, and hence the activity is controlled by these 10, together called as a life of activity. Simple, that's all. So this is another concept that we are being introduced to now in the Shrimad Bhagavatam with respect to the activity. And that is why yogis, when they are able to control their air, their breath, and all that, they are able to do many things, and they are able to refrain from certain things, and so on and so forth. So this is one way of crudely understanding that. Each air controls one movement, and hence the activity is controlled by these 10 together, called as the life of activity. Now the next aspect is called as the self-identification. So the self-identification is with respect to the extent of contamination. We know that all the souls are there, and in each of the soul, the consciousness is contaminated. Why it is contaminated? Based on our previous karma. Like at the time when we went into sleep, and then we got up the next day, then our life continues, right? So we go to sleep as a father or a mother, as a manager or a general manager or whatever. And then the next day morning we get up, life continues from there as a mother or a father or a general manager or whatever we left off with. We will not get up and then play a different role altogether. No, it doesn't happen like that. So in the same way, when the Maha Pralaya or even the Chota Pralayas are happening, when we go into dormant stage, then it is just like a sleep stage. And then when we get up, then we continue with our with the extent of contamination that is there with us. So this is now, how do we understand this extent of contamination? We know that the jiva or the soul has the propensity to fall. We saw that. We get contaminated. We are not Achyuta, so the Lord is Achyuta. We are separated, and we are not the plenary portion of the Lord. We are separated portions of the Lord. Now there are 3 modes of material nature which influences us, which is called the Sattvagun, Rajogun, and Tamogun. Now this is also an ingredient that is there of the 23 ingredients which are there in the Mahatattva. And now there are many combinations of these that are there. So that way, any small variation in any of the gunas will give a different type of personality or character or different type of mindset, etc. Now these 3 are broadly, there are 3 types which are broadly classified as Adhyatmika, Adi Bhautika, and Adi Devika. What are these 3 kind of identification? We will try to see that. Adhyatmika identification is the identification with respect to the body and senses. This is the type of human being who will only think about, or not even human being, I'll say a living entity, which will think about itself, that is its own body, and then the mind or the senses. Now, I want this, I want that, I have to be comfortable. This is this thing. This is, that type of consciousness, which is very, very basic, which is actually animalistic. This Adhyatmika consciousness, or having only Adhyatmika consciousness, is animalistic. Now, the next aspect is Adi Bhautika. Adi Bhautika, it says here, Prabhupada explains it as identification with material products. That means like things around us. So I am the Lord of whatever I see. I want to acquire that. I want to become great. I want to overrule others. I want to empower others. Others have to listen to me. These kind of things, where our interaction with other entities is such that we want to be controllers. So that's the Adi Bhautika kind of an identification which is there. And then thirdly, the Adi Devika, which actually is an identification as a servant of the Lord. So that's the identification which is moving towards the identification of being a servant of the Lord. And that last one, which is Adi Devika, which is the identification of being a servant of the Lord, is the beginning of pure consciousness in line with the desire of the Lord. So this is the conclusion. And this is how the three things are explained of 1, 10, and 3, which is 1 is the consciousness, 10 is the life of activity, and 3 in number is the identification of the entity. So this is how various identities are born or they come into being. And then the conclusion is that from Adhyatmika, Adibhautika kind of identification, we have to move towards Adidevika. And Adidevika consciousness is not the end, because it says that is the beginning of the purity of consciousness. So it is just at the start. So we reach there. It is like having entered into a medical school, a reputed medical school. It doesn't mean that we have become doctors yet. We'll have to clear those exams and other things, challenges that are there in the course of finishing it. So like that. But then we've got admission into it. We've gone into it. So like that. So in this way, we can understand these things. And then the next verse, verse 8, is talking about the gigantic universal form, which it says is the first expansion or incarnation and the plenary portion of the super soul. So now the Lord expands in two ways, we know. I mean, we saw that already. I'm just repeating. And both these expansions are from his internal potency or his internal energy. What is the expansion from the external energy? That is the material world. That is the Mahatattva and all that. That is also coming from the Lord only, but that is a different type of energy. That is external energy. Internal energy is the Jiva Tattvas and Vishnu Tattvas. And now we saw the difference between the Jiva Tattva and Vishnu Tattvas. And this itself is a very deep subject, so we'll only see it briefly for whatever it means for today. Okay, and then, like I said, there are two types of energy, internal and external. So that is all okay. And then there is a difference between Jiva Tattva and Vishnu Tattva is something that we have to understand. This is where people go wrong, because many of them, impersonalists who don't have this proper knowledge, think that Jiva Tattva and Vishnu Tattva are the same. Why is it wrong to think like that? Because we have some limitations, whereas the Vishnu Tattva doesn't. Jiva Tattva can get contaminated. It is Chuta, it is not Achyuta. And then when it becomes Achyuta, it doesn't mean that it has become God. No, so because they are separated. So, Natvevaham Jatu Nasham. So all of us continue to exist. We've existed in the past. We are existing separately now, and we'll continue to exist separately in the future. So there's no way that all this will become merged at a later date. So now the only thing that can merge is the consciousness. Like say two individuals, no, they are separate from start to the finish, but they can still become one. How they can become one? In their thought, in their consciousness. Sometimes you'll say, no, these two are two bodies in one soul or whatever like that. As materially, we try to give a relation there, right? So what I'm trying to say is that the consciousness of these individuals can be the same. Like friends, for example. It evokes the same kind of emotion when a certain funny thing they see outside, or some word that they hear somebody speak, and then it gives a similar memory to both of them, because they are aligned towards each other. So they are conscious of each other, and then the time that they have spent together. So this is the oneness of consciousness that we are talking about. Now the same thing has to be extended to the Lord, and that oneness of consciousness with the Lord, and the oneness of consciousness of all the living entities to the Lord, is the ideal situation that has to be there. And this ideal situation of the oneness of consciousness is experienced in the spiritual world, in the Vaikuntha Loka, whereas in the material world it is not. So we will know now. That is why they say, no, in the spiritual world, you don't even have to say. Before that itself, they will understand what the Lord needed. That is what happened. No, so one explanation with Jaya Vijaya is why they agreed to make that particular aparadh that they did was because they wanted to be cursed, because they understood the mood of the Lord, and they wanted to fulfill that mood or the desire to have a fight and so on and so forth. So all this comes together when we look at it from this consciousness point of view of aligning our consciousness with Krishna, whereby speech is not needed, even though every speech is a song and every step is a dance, but still it is not needed to explain, because even before it is said, people will understand, because they will know the mood. Okay, and then that's how that particular world functions. Whereas here, even if we say, it is difficult for us to actually understand, because we are so much contaminated with our own consciousness that we are not able to see it. That is at a very, very gross level. Sometimes, the other person is saying, but we fail to realize it. We fail to hear it also. We fail to accept what is being told, So that's the other extreme. Okay, anyway, so this gives us an idea with respect to consciousness, then with respect to activities, which is not very clearly understood, but then one small understanding is with respect to the pranayama, like controlling the breathing process. Thereby, we are able to control certain activities or certain thought processes, thinking processes, everything, all the activities of the body. Some of the activities, especially the important ones, are being controlled by pranayama. So like that, the other airs are there to help us do certain activities. And also the control of those air means that controlling of those activities. That's the corollary of it. And then, of course, the next one is the self-identification, which is based on the contamination that we have. And that contamination, there are three things: adhyatmika, adibhautika, and adidaivika. Slightly differently it is used here. It is identification with body and soul, identification with the creation around, or the other things around, and then identification with Krishna, or with being a servant of Lord Krishna. So these are the three things. Now, theoretically, I've explained everything that is there. Now, I was also listening to another lecture by His Holiness Bhakti Vikas Maharaj, and some of the things that he spoke about, I thought I'll mention it here. Why I'm doing that is because that will help us to put these things properly in the mind. Otherwise, it will remain as separated, so we are not able to link everything together, which is not the purpose, right? So here, Maharaj is saying that Kesi means to see as Krishna sees. That is what is Krishna consciousness. That's a very powerful and nice statement that he has made. As Krishna sees, that is how. That is Krishna consciousness. The way he is seeing, I'm able to see. The way he is viewing, or the way, so he is looking at all the living entities, we are able to look at in the same way. So if you're Krishna conscious, that means then you will have compassion to other living entities, because you're seeing like how Krishna sees. Okay, maybe the degree of compassion might be less, but at least the emotion of compassion is there, because we are less, so we can't equal the magnitude of that feeling or the quality. But then in our own way, we will get that same quality. So that way we can see how it is the same. Now there are two views, he says. Maharaj says, one is called as the panoramic view, and then the other one is the microscopic view. Panoramic view means what? This is material I'm talking. Like you are going in a plane and then you look at the ground below. And that's like the panorama. The whole world is seen. You can actually see the curve of the earth also and all of that. But then when you get this panoramic view, what is it that we miss out? We miss out the details. So it is not a microscopic view, it is a panoramic view. So where you like the overall view, which is big, but then it's a two-dimensional view. It does not give details. Like say you see some buildings, you don't know how tall these buildings are, whether one is taller than the other, whether it is a 5-storied building that you're seeing or a 20-storied building you're seeing. We'll not know. From that height, it is all like a little confusing, right? So this way, we can understand panoramic view. And then there is this microscopic view, which is about the view that you have when you go near. Then you'll realize, oh, these two buildings, when I saw in the panoramic view, it looked very similar in size and all that. But then when I see here now, the height is different, the architecture is different, so on and so forth. And then the inside view, that is the third view, which is when you go inside the building, then you will see the arrangement of things there are also different. And then the arrangement of things, one building is different from another. Probably one is a hotel, the other one is a hospital or whatever. So the things that are inside, the type of people that are there, everything is different. So now, which is a complete understanding? All the three are needed. We need to have the panoramic view, we need to have the microscopic view, we need to have the inside view. Now, inside view or the regular view or the panoramic view, all the three views the Lord has of his creation. And now, that is why, and how does he have that? We are seeing that. He sees from all angles. That is why it says, Andhantarastha Paramanu Chayantarastham. So the Lord is in the atom and he is in the Paramanu, that is the atom, and then he is also in the Anda, means the Jagat, the whole world. So now we understood a little bit how, as Virat Purusha, he is inside the Anda or the creation, and inside the Paramanu also he is there as an expansion of this Garbhodaka Sai Vishnu. he further divides himself, and then he goes and then he's occupying the atom, Paramanu, and then he also is occupying the space in between the atom. So this is like, that is how then his consciousness is spreading everywhere. And then, so there's both these aspects. When you look at the Purusha Sukta, there is Sahasra Shirsha Purushaha. So he has got Sahasra Shirsha, and then Purusha, and then Sahasraksha Sahasrapad. So he's got thousands of legs, he's got thousands of hands, eyes. That means what? The eyes are everywhere. Sometimes they say, no, your whole body is full of eyes only, you don't miss anything. So like that now, the eyes, that means what? His consciousness is spread, he's expanded himself in such a way that everything is known to the Lord. It's not like he's having eyes, all his body is full of eyes. No, not like that, not literally like that. Okay. And then of course Sahasrashya, and then he can also have like that. But that's where the confusion gets a little more complicated, because when I say he can't have, but then he can also have. So we cannot deny anything with respect to the Lord. But this is just for us to understand that I'm just putting across these things. So in this way, we can see how the Lord, in his 1,000 arms, 1,000 legs, 1,000 eyes, everything, which means that he's not missing any detail. The panoramic view is there. And then there's also this microscopic view as Shirodaka Sai Vishnu. He's in every atom. He is between atom. He's inside the Jiva Tattvas, that is, he's inside us, and in everywhere he is there. So he knows what is happening, because by consciousness, then awareness is there, and then he's able to know what is happening. And then he's also very intelligent, so he knows what is going to happen, what is happening, and what has happened before. So that way he knows past, present, future, and so on and so forth. So like this, in one way, Maharaj was saying that how does he do all of this? He does it as Garbhodaka Sai Vishnu and Shirodaka Sai Vishnu. And then the expansions of Garbhodaka, from Garbhodaka Sai Vishnu, Shirodaka Sai Vishnu has come for this particular material jagat, so in this way we can understand that. And then the nature that we talk about is the Mahatattva, which is the mother. And then when the father is needed to activate it, and thereby then activities happen. And then the nature is the one that is giving the body, father is the one who impregnates, and thereby a living entity comes into being. So the same thing is happening in not only the creation at a macro level, creation also has happened like that. In the micro level, we all are also born like that. And in the way that only when the soul enters, then there is life. The same way, when the soul of the Lord entered creation, then the creation began, or it swung into motion, and then many things started to happen. Like how soul enters, and the body grows. So we are in a small stage within the womb, then birth happens, and then we learn to shake our hands and legs, then we are able to walk, sit, talk, eat by ourselves, then we are able to read, write, understand. So many things happen after that. But then all that can only happen when there is soul inside, otherwise nothing else. In the same way, the entire creation, start to finish, the Lord is there, and that is why it goes through those stages, and then it gets annihilated. So that is also very symptomatic, right? The symptom of life is what? Creation, start, then growing up, then remain for some time, then deterioration, and then death. The same way, even the universal creation, it gets created, then it grows, as in it is that 1,000 celestial year, then the creation, all of that. Brahma's activities are happening. So it is growing in the sense, not exactly in size, but then activities are happening. Then it is living byproducts. So there are so many activities again, and then it deteriorates. So we have seen how when the end is coming, there won't be any rain and all that. So things will begin to deteriorate to that extent, and then this complete annihilation that happens. So that way, if you apply the same theory here or the axiom here, we'll realize that is a symptom of life, which means that the entire creation is a life, and that is the life of the Lord, or the consciousness of the Lord is there. So in this way, we can understand. Now, all this is a little contrary to what we have been exposed to up till now. So because what has happened in the last 300, 400 years is the so-called science angle has been highlighted so much, where the aspect of the Supreme Lord is taken away, but then they are looking at it in a very gross level. They are looking at it in a very rationalistic way. Atheistic kind of an approach has happened. So all phenomena are being explained in that way, and thereby it becomes a little difficult for us to understand this explanation of the Lord being there. See, by and large, we all accept that, okay, Lord is there and all that. But then when we go into the details of this, sometimes we have our own self-doubt. Oh, is it real? Or maybe this is just like that they are saying. So we come to our own conclusion. Based on our contamination, we conclude in a certain way based on the kind of thing that we have. And then we try to stop short, and then we'll say, okay, this much I can take, then the rest I cannot. So like this, you will find all types of people and all types of acceptance for the spiritual knowledge which is there. But then the knowledge that is coming in the Shrimad Bhagavatam, we will have to take it wholeheartedly, wholesomely. If you look at how Prabhupada dealt with it, so wonderfully he has explained these things. And then if you look here, the lectures of the disciples of Prabhupada, they also are wonderfully trying to relate and correlate and then trying to give a view, Vedic view or the Shrimad Bhagavatam view on one hand, and then you have this material view which is on one hand, which is very, very gross. And actually, these two are not separate if you look at it. They will have to come together. It's just that this link is not there, and so it is kept separate. Modern scientists are trying to widen the gap between these two, whereas actually a spiritualist will try to bridge that gap or bring it together, because the phenomena that you observe in the science is also true to the extent that what we hear in the Shrimad Bhagavatam is also true. We'll have to bring that together, and that is why they also say, there is physics and there is metaphysics. After physics ends, metaphysics starts. You can see what is metaphysics. Metaphysics is all about spiritual things. So the entire population believe in God, but then though there is belief, but then these details, it becomes too much for somebody to take. And that is why, in fact, I was just seeing few weeks back when the ISRO scientists were trying to launch the Chandrayaan. They did a puja before the launch. The whole world is bewildered. They say, what is this? Are you a scientist? If you have to be one, then you can't be the other, is the view that the world carries. But then our scientists seem to have synthesized these two together to a great extent, because they understand that whatever effort I am putting for the success, then there has to be a sanction of the Lord. But then my effort is to reach a certain place, so I'm launching it. So I'm trying to get the sign off from the gods, whoever, whatever they believe, and then try to do this. So this is a little more closer to the Adhyatmika than to other things, or to spiritualism. So, but then the Western world is bewildered. In fact, we saw some rationalists trying to make fun of it in some of the forwards, some of you would have seen. But then actually these two syntheses, when it happens, that is when there is completeness in the knowledge and in understanding. And what the scientists are doing, Maharaj was saying, is like a ascending process that they are trying to use to reach to the Lord, which is not going to work. It is like saying, Prabhupada gives this example of how trying to find out who is your father. You don't go around asking everybody, are you my father? Are you my father? That's a very stupid, wasted effort. And that is what the scientists are doing now. They want to get the core of why things are happening, but then they stop short. They don't want to take that knowledge which is coming from the core, saying that this is how it is happening, but then they just want to go around all around the place and try to invent, reinvent, modify, remodify, and then start progressing. That progress is very, very troublesome. It takes a long time. Like how a boy trying to find out who is his father, he goes around the entire population trying to ask, are you my father? Which is a wasted exercise. All he has to do is ask the mother, and then she'll tell, and that's it. In the same way, you ask the way, look at what the Vedas are saying. That is why Vedas are referred to as mother, Veda Mata. Why? Because he points to the father. So if we should know when to stop looking at this ascending process and then accept the descending process, then everything becomes all right. So the basic difference between the two generations, that is the olden times and now, the Sanatana Dharma and the modern sciences, one is the ascending process, the other one is the descending process. So descending process is much, much better because we know straight away why it's happening and all of that, whereas they'll come to the same conclusion later on. So these are some of the thoughts that I want to share with you all. And then, so Srila Prabhupada is actually giving these particular things in a scientific way as well as in a sentimental way. Both he is covered. So sentimentalism is also there in terms of the stories, the emotion angle, Krishna Katha and all that. We accept all of that and then we are very happy with it. But then the intelligence portion, the logical portion, it becomes a little dry. But anyway, we will have to hear that also, so that we are able to see how the Lord is responsible for everything. The Lord is the owner of everything. He is Ishavasyam Idam Sarvam. Everything belongs to Him. So everything is coming from Him. So this is how the creation has come from Him. This is how the consciousness is spread everywhere. This is how He is omnipotent, omnipresent, and omniscient. So in this way, I'll stop here. Yeah, we have a minute. So if there are any comments or questions on whatever we said, we discussed today, you can go ahead. Otherwise, I'll stop here. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much.
Thank you so
Hare
much,
Krishna,
Prabhu.
Prabhuji.
Yeah, and there's a small disclaimer. I don't know if I'll be able to take all the questions in the sense that I may not know the answers, but anyway, we'll give it a try.
No, yeah, Anusuya Mataji, go ahead.
Yeah. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Very nice class. Prabhuji, can you explain about that airs, no? 10 types of airs. This Naga, Kurma, this one,
Yeah.
Prabhuji.
Mataji, I don't want to explain it now for the simple reason
Yeah,
that...
just...
No, let me complete. Let me complete.
Yeah.
For the simple reason that the same things get repeated in tomorrow's verses also. So there little more detail is given. I don't want to take away that thing from the other speaker who is going to follow me. So just hold it there. So there will be more explanations that are coming there. In the next shloka, it is there. Some more details are there.
Okay, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Okay, so please wait for that so that
no problem,
the
Prabhuji.
speaker will be able to
Thank
talk.
you, Prabhuji. Yeah, thank you.
Any other question, doubt, or comment? Suma
Hare
Mataji.
Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranams.
Hare
Prabhuji,
Krishna.
how did the first contamination happen, Prabhuji, in the consciousness? Like we were so part and parcel of the you said, like in the previous kalpas, those karma vasana or something like that. Because of that, we got contaminated.
Correct. That was at the start of each creation when the living entities come into being. But we also know from the Shastras that as living entities, we were with the Lord without any contamination, and then we got contaminated. That was because of the free will that He has given us. So we desired a certain amount of enjoyment or exclusivity like the Lord enjoyed. So this desire, free will is always there for us. So the moment we exercise our free will and make a choice, the Lord accepts that choice, and then He says, okay, you want to enjoy yourself separately from me, then so be it. But then you cannot do it here in the spiritual world. So there is a separate place for that, and then you'll have to go there. And then that's how then we come here. So the contamination happens, so we came here. It's not like we came here and then we got contaminated, because this desire to enjoy separately from the Lord is that small contamination that creeps in, which is the result for all the things. Subsequent things are because of the actions and reactions that we have done or not done in the material world. So it keeps adding and subtracting. It's like taking a small loan and then making it bigger and bigger later on. So in the spiritual world, because He has given us a free will, because we know that theoretically love means then there should not be any conditions. So it has to be with free will. If I have to love a person, there should not be any condition to it, right? So without any condition, if I do something, and that is an expression of true love. So this way, Krishna wants that kind of love without being any inhibition, without being compelled to do anything. If we serve the Lord, then He accepts it, and that is an expression of love, and He also reciprocates in the same way. But then when we are compelled, and then we say, oh no, I don't want to be here, but what to do? I have to do this, and then it would be nice if I were in His place, and then and somebody else is serving me. So that means that your mind is not there. So then there is no compulsion. So when He immediately then says, okay, if that is what you want, then so be it. And that's how then He sends us to this place. And that is His mercy, actually. Acharya said it is His mercy that He's sending us here. And then He's allowing us to fulfill our desires, and then realize the futility of it, and then realize the impermanence of it, and all of that. And then we decide with our intelligence to come back. There again, the free will. So even there is free will when we came down, there is also free will when we have to go back. So that free will, when we are totally accepted the fact that I don't want to be here, and Krishna, please take me, it's your, now I mean, that is my desire, my will. Then, things begin to happen for us. I
Hare
hope that
Krishna,
explains.
Yes, Prabhuji, but I have one more question, Prabhuji. Like
Yes.
we were there with the Lord, so that time we had the free will. But now, after performing bhakti, when we go now, is that free will be there, or free will be there, or
it will be
we'll
there.
be surrendered souls, or
No, the
how,
free
Prabhuji,
will be there. It is like free will be there, but then we will not want to exercise it. Our free will, our will is not to exercise that freedom that we thought is the best thing. So it is like that, like anything, no, like that you ate something and then you had a stomach problem, so that. And now that same thing is available, but you will not take it. You'll know that if I take, and you can take it, nobody is stopping you from not taking it. But then out of your own intelligence, you will say, I won't take it. I don't know. I know what will happen if I take it. Though it sounds very nice and sweet, but then I'll land into problem. I don't want it. So, like that.
Thank you, Prabhuji. I understood. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna.
Divya Gopu Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Wonderful class. Thank you so
Hare
much. Prabhuji, the question I had is with respect to the three types of consciousness, which you said, Adi Daivik, Adi Bhautik. Can you once give a high level, Prabhuji?
Yeah, yes, Mataji. So, I'll try to. Second. See, there are three types of consciousness. So, Adhyatmik, Adi Daivik, and Adi Bhautik. So, Adi Bhautik is the gross level where we know what is Adi Bhautika Klesha. That means the difficulties that arise because of our mind and body. That means what? Because of the consciousness of me being this mind, body and mind. That is what it is, right? Adi Bhautika Kleshas, how do they move away? When we come out of that consciousness, I'm not this body. So, okay, something is happening. So those things become minimized at that point. So actually, they are all related. But yeah, Adi Bhautik means it is the consciousness or the identification with the body and the mind. Mind means, of course, the senses also. So that is the first one. Then that is, that is Adhyatmika.
Adhyatmika.
So yeah, Adhyatmika, that is. Adi Bhautika means others, like, wanting to control others, material products, identification with material product. I want this car, I want this bungalow, all, whatever you want to lord, you want to lord it over everything. Everything belongs to me. Why I shouldn't have it? Let me strive for it. You see something nice, you want it. Okay, let me try to strive for it. So you might strive for it in a sattvic way or in a tamasic way. That means you might earn, or you might borrow, steal, or you might do something. But then the desire to own it is there. Whether you do it in a good way or in a bad way, but still it is Adi Bhautika. You get what I'm saying. So that is one aspect. Then, of course, Adi Dhaivika is consciousness or the identification as a servant of the Lord, which means that I am Anu, he is Vibhu, and all of that. And there are higher forces which are beyond me. And then I am a servant, or I have to serve, those sort of things. Not trying to be an owner, but trying to be a servant. So this is how the progression is. We have moved to the other extreme where we are bodily conscious. From there, we'll have to move to this extreme, which is about being a servant of the Lord.
Prabhuji, even the material miseries, they say they categorize under these three only, right, Prabhuji? Like Adhyatmic kleshas, Adi Bhautik, and Adi Daivik kleshas.
Correct. So because you are Adi Bhautik, you have Adi Bhautik klesha. How I'll tell you? Because you are conscious of the other person. Oh, why is he doing like that? Yeah, it irritates me so much. That Adi Bhautik klesha becomes very prominent. For another person, okay, they are not in that consciousness of that Adi Bhautika, that is that material thing. See, somebody, when you see a beautiful Rolls Royce moving around on the road, different people get affected in different ways. One person, all of them will admire it, but then one person will want it. The other person will say, so nice it is. They'll marvel at the engineering and all that. So based on the nature, like they will react to it. So now this Adi Bhautika kind of a person will own it. And now if he is in Tamoguna, he'll want to own it hook or crook. He'll try to kill that person who's driving and take it on and move. That is more animalistic. So I'm just giving examples to place ourselves there.
Okay. So it means the material modes will have a control over the consciousness, and
Yeah.
That consciousness is what will trigger the material miseries, whatever we face.
Yeah, and those miseries are again same. They are classified in the same way. So this way you can relate the two or connect the two. It's not different.
Okay. Yeah, thank you so much, Prabhuji. Dandavat pranam.
Divya Prem Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandavat pranam. Very technical session, Prabhu, today. So, Prabhu, my question is, what is the first state of fall down? Like, I hear many people saying we take the first stage.
First stage of fall down, you hear many people saying what? I missed that word.
Brahma. We will be taking the position of Brahma.
No. First fall down is not position of Brahma. Brahma is actually an elevated position that you get because of certain good things that you have done. So the first fall down is to come to this material world. And then in the material world, you have this desire to enjoy things independently. So now what are the things that you want to enjoy? Today you will have a list of what all you want to enjoy. But then at that point, that list was unlimited. You want to experience a kind of life. So that sometimes they say, I want to enjoy A, B, C, or they'll say, I want to have an experience. So experience means multiple things that you want to enjoy. And that is why you call it as experience. No? Like that, we desire to experience ourselves as the Lords, or as being served, as the master, like wanted to be in Krishna's position. Not exactly a specific, what do you call, a desire. But then it's an experience that you wanted. So the Lord sends us here. And then how do we get all that experience? So he has a program for it. So he has this 8.4 million species of life. And then he says, okay, you go through each one of them, you'll get the experience of material world, all your experience. You'll get an experience where you're the master. So you'll get an idea of what it is. So we end up that way. And then we start from start, which is a small, and then we go on plant body, animal body, whatever, and then that whole stages, and then come to the human body and all that. So in this way. Today, for us, because of our experience or conditioning, we might say that is abhorrible, this is good, this is bad, and all that. Still, we have some desire. So slowly, that experience, okay, I've had enough of it, let me go back. We are moving towards that. So that is why certain experiences are not needed. We will not desire it now. But then at that point, we didn't know. We wanted everything. We just wanted an experience. So the Lord said, okay. The Lord is always very magnanimous. No? So he'll give, okay, have the whole bandwidth of the experience. Go and then go through the 8.4. So we end up going through the 8.4. And then he says, he gives a human form and he says, okay, now tell me, what do you want? There again, if we have the same consciousness, he'll say, again, go through it again. Now, if we say, no, enough, then, okay, he'll send a guru and then, the whole process will start. And then we'll start going back to them. So this is at a very, very high level, panoramic view.
So directly we fall down to the material Bhuloka.
We come back to the material world. It's not a thing. It is that need to, or the desire to enjoy independent of Krishna. That's all.
Okay. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Okay. So thank you so much, Prabhu, for a very nice and very clear explanation of these 4 verses. I know that all of us are satisfied, though these are the technical terms and maybe not be very clear, but Prabhu has explained it wonderfully well. So thank you so much, Prabhu. Now we will end the class over here, and tomorrow again we'll meet at 9:30 a.m. So we'll do Krishna Pranam Mantra and we'll end the class. Vanja kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyeva अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय, श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय।
Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu, Dandavat pranam. Thank you, Prabhuji. Dandavat pranam. Wonderful class.
Thank you,
Hare
Prabhuji.
Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Shall I end the session, Prabhu?
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah. Hare Krishna to all.